first edition of the Naharjito Bookathon presented in association with the Raisoni Foundation. In this session, we are going to explore the book Chase the Change, Bridging the Gap Between Thinking and Doing. The heaviest burden that anyone can carry is the burden of their unrealized potential, and yet most of us are guilty of carrying that burden. We all know that change does not come easy. It is a process and we need to make it happen. Chase the Change explore what holds us back, the psychology of change, the conscious biases that interfere with change, and the irrefutable laws of change that we all are aware of but don't live by. Using his learnings, observations, and research, leadership Sandeep Jain has codified his process of personal change in Wonder, an acronym for how to get started with change. Build positive habits, motivation, and commitment to stay the course, and how to eventually win at change. Our speaker of the session is Mr. Sandeep Jain. He is a strategy consultant and leadership coach. He is the CEO of Value Unlocked Private Limited. In his corporate career, he has lived and worked in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Singapore, beside India, in various finance and business leadership roles. In his current role, Sandeep engages with senior leaders, entrepreneurs, and organizations within and outside India, helping them bring to life the fantastic success stories they want to script about themselves in the real world. Sandeep is also extensively involved in the startup ecosystem as a mentor investor working directly with entrepreneurs and as a young advisor through various incubation and acceleration setups. Sandeep is a passionate reader, running enthusiast, ghazal and poetry lover, knowledge seeker, and author contributor to various publications. He lives by his credo of playful exploration of all things serious in life and work. Well, our moderator of this session is Mr. Tushar Mule, a seasoned training expert with over 30 years of experience. He has empowered leaders, managers, teachers, faculty members, and students across industry and academics, specializing in leadership, emotional quotient, employability, and soft skills, and much more. Author of several publications, he has recently co-authored a book titled as The Golden Book of Employability. Get hired, stay hired. It's in the print right now. Tushar Kule has skilled thousands of trainees so far with excellent feedback and number of success stories, making him a sought after trainer and advisor. Now I'd like to hand over our session to our moderator.
So this is something which I just wanted to talk to you. This is something I tried to understand about our guest speaker today and also about his work. So congratulations, Sandeep, for on the publication of your book. How does it feel to be, to have your work in print? That's the first thing I would like to know from you.
Yeah, so Tushar, thank you so much for this opportunity, first of all, and thanks for such kind words and generous introduction. Obviously, it feels great to have a book, something that is tangible, something you can hold, something you can, share with people. Sometimes we don't have the opportunity to bring value to people, and I think book is a great way to add value to people's lives.
Very true.
So certainly, it feels very good.
You come from a very finance background. You've been leader in a leadership positions and you worked in various countries as such. Other than this, I can see incubations, I can see startups, I can see investor, mentor, and so many things. I also can see something related to coaching in this way.
Yes.
So can you just let me know what kind of work do you do? That's something very obviously
Yes.
even my viewers would like to know from you.
Interesting, absolutely. No, I think I've spread myself a little bit too broad in terms of the work that I do, and that's because I really like the diversity of ideas, experiences, people,
Correct.
Opportunities to do different things.
Correct.
So at Value Unlock, primarily we work in 3 domains. The first domain is leadership coaching, where we work with senior leaders, large corporations, entrepreneurs who are willing to professionalize, build new businesses, etc. And leadership coaching or business coaching is a 6 to 8 month engagement where you specifically work with an individual on the areas they want to improve about themselves, their organization, or their business. It's about competencies, culture, capabilities, that kind of work. So that's one domain, leadership coaching. The second domain is strategy consulting, where I help companies with their transformation journeys. This could be about revenue growth, cost optimization, digital transformation, innovation, design thinking, that kind of work. And third, I've been, as you mentioned in your intro, been very active in the startup ecosystem, and I kind of engage with startups in different formats: advisor, investor, mentor, sometimes directly and sometimes through some of the IIMs and IITs who have incubation and acceleration platforms through them. Yeah, so that's really what it is. Very diverse, but so one common thread I think is in all these that I do is change. I
Okay,
am in the business of change. Sometimes it's about helping individuals change for better. Sometimes it's about helping organizations change for better.
correct,
And
correct,
sometimes it's about startups, the change in terms of putting or bringing their ideas to fruition, let's say, or taking them to the next level.
correct,
So,
correct.
yeah, so I think that's the common thread, I would say. And that's how it connects in some ways with the book as well.
So in fact, I have another question in relation to this. Looking at the vast area, because it's all the field of strategy, management, consultancy. That is one area, definitely, and your work is immense in that, no doubt about it. But I would like to know, about your writing journey. How this journey began? How did you develop your interest into writing?
Yeah. So I must say it's been about 5 years. I've been contributing a bit of articles in various digital platforms. I write for some of the international coaching platforms. I write for the Forbes Council. I write for a couple of other digital magazines like ETCFO, HR Katha, which is basically a HR related platform. So I've been writing for about 5 years now. And it was during COVID that I thought that, rather than writing individual articles, can I weave it into a little bit of a full script as a book? And so it was the 14 months around COVID that I started and ended this project of putting this book together. And I must say that that in itself has been a bit of a change that I achieved for myself. I never set out to be an author.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And sometimes how you can,
Correct.
a large task, if you cut it into smaller pieces, you are able to achieve so much. And that's what I did with this book. Every day I was writing, 25 minutes or so. I follow a productivity technique, and that's why 25 minutes. And I think over 14 months, I had a book in place.
Okay, that's great.
So that's how it was. Yes.
In fact, now this is a very right opportunity to understand, like, you are a coach, you are somebody who is advocating and training and coaching people on change. And change, one of the very major traits is something to do with adaptability and flexibility.
Yes.
And probably during the time of COVID, where many of us succumb to the environment, you preferred to lead your life in a very creative way, and that's how this book has come for the benefit of viewers and the readers. That's great. That's very good. Uh, in fact, another question which I have, because I'm yet to get into the in-depth part of it, but I do have some questions and queries. What inspired you to write this Chase the Change?
Okay.
Right.
So, yeah, the premise with which I wrote this book is that I think every individual is actually, if he has or she has two minds. There is a thinking mind and there is a doing mind. Our thinking mind is very agile. We are always making great plans. Let's do this, let's do that. This is what I want to achieve. But the doer is, I would say, relatively relaxed, doesn't want to do too much of work. And, that is why the change really doesn't happen. And in some ways, the
Absolutely.
tagline of this book is also bridging the gap between thinking and doing. So, inspired by my coaching space, inspired by my own change journeys, I have put together what I believe is some kind of a document or some kind of literature which can help people to be inspired first to change, and second to be able to hold this process of change together and win at the change that they want to make for themselves. So
Correct.
yeah, so I think that's really been, how can you get people to think about the change they want in their lives and how to get them to action it and take it to the next level.
And as you said, like
Motivation.
about the, okay, that's great. And as you said, like, there is a thinking, and other one is the doing part. I can
Yeah.
relate it to myself, and to a great extent, I can relate it to myself. Yeah, in fact, this name, Chase the Change, is very fascinating name as such.
Mhm.
So I would like to know what's the story behind this title. How did you come to this particular title, and what it signifies? Because it's very fascinating.
Yeah.
Change is something we listen every day and night, but chase the change is something that kind.
Yeah. So I must say that this was not, yeah, yeah. So I must say this was not the first title that came to my mind. Actually, I was playing around a little bit with the Wonder framework because Wonder is a big framework that I discuss in a few chapters in the book. And I was thinking the book should
Correct.
be called, something like For Your Wonderful Life or towards, something to do with wonder. And then the publisher Rupa came back and said that probably this is not going to work as much. So why don't you think of something which is more like, like a action title, which is more like a
Yeah, absolutely.
verb.
Correct.
And that's when and sometimes you get ideas from all over the place. So I shared this with a cousin of mine, with a niece of mine. And I told
Okay.
her, I said, I'm kind of, just struggling with this title. So why don't you put together something for me and maybe even a marketing plan for the book if I was to publish it eventually? So she came with this hashtag chase the change.
Oh, that's great.
And that is what kind of clicked a little bit. So I think due credit to her for having brought this thing to kind of to my attention, I would say. And a
Correct.
lot of this book is actually inspired, I would say, and they've helped me. My kids and my nieces, two of my nieces, they've helped me put together and also make the book in a way that today's generation can also relate to it. Let's say.
Correct. Yeah, because our audiences or our readers are going to be from all walks of life and all age
Absolutely,
groups.
absolutely.
So definitely, the book should also address to all the generations because everybody is having this challenge of change.
Yes.
Uh, when we talk of change, I always see it like there are two kinds of change.
Hmm.
One is which is very external in nature, like maybe something is changing, and I need to adapt to that particular change. And something is very intrinsic, where I want to make a change in myself, where I'm realizing that probably there are few things I'm not doing I should do. Maybe something like New Year's resolutions,
Yes,
etc.
exactly.
So, when you try to tell us about changes, what exactly thought process you had related to the change? Because I just thought of two. I'm sure
Yes,
that you must
yes.
have given a 360-degree view to this.
No, to be honest, these two are really the broadest of the categories, and they certainly, and I like to call them changes which happen by default and changes which happen by design. The
Correct.
first one that you spoke about, external environment, exerting pressure, etc., that is to some extent changes by default. You are put in an environment where you need to kind of change. I
Very
think
true.
that also, obviously, for that change to happen, something within you has to change. And there is a certain impact of that change as well. But for me, the bigger and the more potential changes are the changes that we think about and design our life for.
Correct.
What is it? How many times would we sit back and think, what is it that I want to change in my life? And how am I going to go about making that change?
Correct.
Because honestly, if you don't have the motivation, as I believe change is a combination of motivation and technique, and you need to have both, they have a multiplier effect.
Correct.
Even if one is missing, the result is zero. Let's put it this way.
Very true. Very true. Very true. So, because you have mentioned in your book about broad definition of change encompassing everything,
Mm.
right from eliminating the bad habits to developing the new competencies. That part you already spoken.
Yeah.
So, as an individual, how can I identify the most impactful areas so that I can focus on a certain change as such.
The most important thing is that, to pause and reflect for a minute, think about it, that what is it that is holding me back from, achieving my utmost potential? Probably the answer lies there.
Okay.
We could also think about what's the feedback normally we get from people. Sometimes we may get feedback, sometimes we may have to take the initiative to seek feedback. And for people we trust, the feedback that comes from them could be very powerful for deciding the course of a change that you want to make for yourself. Um, we could also use frameworks, and I discuss a few frameworks in the book, but two of them which are very relevant is one is which is called a wheel of life, basically. I like to call it whole because it helps you look at your whole life in a very balanced way. And it's a very
Right.
simple framework. You just, see your life in, let's say, 8 compartments. One of them is, for example, business and career. The other is
Right.
finance. The third is health and well being. Fourth is
Right.
family and friends. Sixth is love and romance. Seventh is self development. And eighth is giving back. Did I say I did got my counting wrong? And then there is happiness and fun. So, if you mark yourself and see where are you on a scale of 10 on each of these, you will be able to understand that where is it that your life is out of balance and what is it that I need to work on.
Okay.
So that's one of the most basic, frameworks that one can use.
So these are the areas, as you have suggested, that these are
Yeah.
8 compartments we
Yeah.
talked about.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that since I am having a privilege to talk to you and I could go through your work as such, but thinking of anybody, like for that matter,
Yes.
so what are the common obstacles one comes across while identifying these areas? Because there
Hmm.
may be something I'm not able to reach to. So what are those common obstacles, do you think, and what is the solution to, or at least how to get rid of those obstacles?
Yeah. And the obstacles can again be divided a bit into two parts. One is the obstacle of understanding what to change. And I think some of the things that we discussed is about the what to change and also deeply why to change. What is it that this change is going to give me? Why do I want to make this change? The second part is to both identify obstacles to change, but also identify resources which can help you with the change. When we are working in change, we are always worried about failure. We are worried about losing face. Where is it that we can find a safe space? How can we get started, even if it is in a small way, so that we go from confidence to confidence? And that is
Okay.
where I think the support system comes in, very handy. I also think that we as individuals, especially I think this side of the world, for some reason are very reluctant to invest in our own development.
True. True.
Given a choice, I would rather buy a flashy car than go in for an executive education program because there I see a tangible benefit. I can immediately enjoy the ride. And the executive education is going to take me at least 1 year to complete, and then, then opportunities will open up. So the more tangible benefits we can see, the more quickly we can make decisions to do that thing.
Correct.
Here we have to think a little bit ahead. We should not think of instant gratification. We should think of what are the benefits that are going to come to us 1 year, 2 years down the line. So that's
Okay.
a big piece of getting yourself to move with the change process.
Right. One thing you mentioned about the feedback part.
Yeah.
So we definitely understand that feedback is very crucial for the process of change. But when it comes to the feedback, it is coming from the others to me.
Yes.
So how can I create a very supportive environment where I can, at least I can get a honest feedback for my continuous improvement?
Yeah. And Tushar, you raise a very, very valid point. I think that is something which all of us struggle with. And there are, one is the fact to find the right people to give you feedback. So, understand who are the people you can trust you, who have the wisdom to give you the feedback, and only request those people for feedback. That is one. Second, most importantly, is I think, feedback, the responsibility or the ownership of feedback should be taken by the one seeking the feedback. We should not wait for people to give us feedback. We should actually seek that feedback. And sometimes when we seek feedback, we seek it in a very strange way. We ask leading questions. Am I doing well? Now, chances are somebody will say, yes, you are doing well. But the right question to ask is, what is it that I'm doing well? What is it that I could do better? If I was to do the same thing again tomorrow, what would you want me to do differently?
Correct.
So that is the right way to seek feedback. The other is to be able to accept feedback. You seek feedback and the person starts giving you feedback, and almost immediately your defense shields go up. And in your mind, you're already thinking, this guy does not understand me. That was one stray incident. He's forming an opinion because of that. This person doesn't understand the pressure that I work under. So we've already started rationalizing. And what happens is that the person who's giving feedback he's also thinking, why did you come to me at all? Why did you seek this feedback if you didn't want to listen?
Correct. Because if we are asking, we should be receptive in that case, at least to understand. Rationalization can be done later on. Maybe people are giving the right kind of feedback.
Yeah. And we have to understand, being rational is not rationalization. They are completely different things. Rationalization is you're putting justifications unnecessarily and trying to justify it to yourself. Being rational.
Very true. In fact, I must say that though change has been very much talked about, no doubt about it. In fact, right from Mahatma Gandhi to Swami Vivekananda, there are so many people are talking about change. They spoke about change, and those quotes are constantly quoted every now and then.
Yeah.
But still, as you are speaking, I am realizing that yes, each one of us, needs to look into it very seriously, because this is going to touch upon our lives, and maybe it may help us to develop our careers. So that's going to be the next question. Of course, you talk about, you emphasize on importance of learning new skills and competencies. So there are some steps I need to take, some practical steps I need to take, where I can identify these skills, develop these skills, and then aligning it with my personal as well as goals. What would you like to say, sir? Right.
And Tushar, exactly to that point, I think is the wonder framework. And let me just take a couple of minutes to speak about what the word wonder stands for. So W is basically the what and why of change. So that is exactly what you're saying. Personal goals, professional goals, what do I want to change? Equally important for, yeah.
Right. Yeah, in between we lost the audio. Can you please start with from the W part?
Yeah, so W I was saying is the what and why of change. And that is where it aligns with what you were saying. What are my professional goals? What are my personal goals? What is it that I want to change? And more importantly, why do I want to change it? We should be convinced that we want to put efforts in that change and that commitment is solid. So that is the first part. O is about organizing the change. Let's all agree we all have 24 hours and nothing less. If we have to work on something, we have to let something go. So we have to think about what is it that we are willing to let go. Are we willing to let go, the OTT binging that we do every evening, or are we willing to let go something else to be able to make time for this change? So that's about organizing, and also what are the obstacles going to be? What support can I get about for this change? I think that's the O part of it, owning, organizing change, right? Then N is about starting now. And for me, that's a very, very, very important piece, because when I say now, I'm talking in relative terms, means starting tomorrow or immediately as soon as of you think of change, without giving it too much time, because the more time you give, the more are the chances the change will not happen. You will not get started with it. So, that commitment to start ASAP, at the first possible moment, let's say. So that's about starting now. D is the discipline of doing, which is when we want to make the change. Sometimes what happens is that we put too much of energy right in the beginning. We burn ourselves out with that change because it's a change. It's not going to happen overnight. We think that
Correct.
more efforts is going to give us quicker results. It doesn't happen that way. So the D is about the discipline of doing, building habits, small little things but consistently done. And once that
Right.
habit is formed, then you move to the E part of it, which is escalating the energy behind the change, where you step up. Now you are comfortable at a certain level, your habits are formed. What can I do to be at the next level? How can I challenge myself? How can I put more efforts and see more results?
Correct.
And then the R is about reflecting on that change. And why R is important is because, irrespective of whatever change we make, we will always have people who will be ahead of us on that change. So, you can look at it this way, that the glass is half empty or half full. Some people may say half full, half empty. But my request to people is to look at the fact that the capacity of the glass has increased.
Correct.
So even if it's half full, it is bigger in volume than what it was when you started on this change.
Correct.
And then how can you cement this change, which happens typically by teaching somebody, by inspiring somebody, by helping some other people through their change, or by just moving to another change you wanted to make.
Correct.
So that's how this wonder framework, kind of encapsulates the entire journey of change in some ways.
Correct. And when we talking on the backdrop of the framework, I said that when it comes to aligning these goals with personal and professional goals, because I feel that if I create a professional or a personal goal, I am creating a motivation for myself.
Yes.
So how should I do it? Like,
Um, how would you do it? As in, how would you work on those goals, or
alignment of the goal.
alignment of the goals? Yeah, so there are two parts to it. One is your long-term vision. This is what you want to be 15 years down the year line, 10 years down the line, etc., etc. That's your long-term vision. And the goals should be a subset of what you want to do in the long term. And I think that is how that alignment happens. You can't, for example, if you want to be something in the next 15 years, you can't wait until the 14 years to start on that change. You need to start now in whatever little way that you want to. And you could possibly fix milestones, that this is what I would expect to be 3 years down the line, 6 years down the line, 9 years down the line. And, it is quite possible, I must say, that you may not be able to stick to the plan. It happens because environment is not in your control. But the fact remains that having a plan is better than not having a plan. At least you have a direction that you are working towards. And when you do the milestoning piece of it, interim goals, then you know that whether you are actually working towards the end goal or not.
Correct. Correct. In fact, my next was quite related to you, partially addressed to it, because that's what I was thinking. Like, when I'm prioritizing my skill developments,
Yeah.
but amidst the responsibilities around,
Yes.
it might be a procrastination on my part, but amidst the priorities, what are their responsibilities around me? So many times the priority of the skill development takes a backseat. So that's exactly, in fact, you partially addressed that question I had thought of asking you.
Yeah, I think that I completely agree with you. We are all in situations where we have some control on our time, but there is a lot of control on our time which we don't have. Having
Correct,
said
correct.
that, it's also true that managing time is not about managing time per se. It's about managing yourself.
True, very true.
And if we really want something, deeply, strongly, we will find a way to get it.
Correct. Even my understanding is concerned, the role of consistent efforts in achieving the goals, results,
Yes.
regardless of the talent. So, I just wanted to understand that, how to, because this consistency, there are two things which I feel that probably one gets deprived of this very, chasing the
Yeah.
change. Like, there is a accountability and the maybe motivation and consistency. Probably
Yes.
these two I can consistency and motivation.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I'm repeating my same question or
No, I think there is a layer to this question that, yeah,
goal is please. So sustaining the the motivation and having that consistent effort altogether, like without getting demoralized, without losing the heart. So anything would you like to say about this consistency of efforts and motivation?
yeah. So, as far as consistency of efforts is concerned, for me, and that's really the foundation of any change, which is building new habits. So we have to get to build new habits. And building new habits are about starting small, about doing things, let's say, fixing some kind of daily ritual for doing things. Even if you devote 15 minutes to it, but can you do it every day, for example? Can you anchor your habits into something else? Which means if I want to run in the morning, can I leave my running shoes and my shorts right where I get up so that the first thing I see is that, let me, wear and just go out for a run. So can I build that some kind of an anchor for that change? Can I build associations? I give this example in the book also, and it's a personal learning, honestly. I wanted to, for many years, build my habit of Surya Namaskar, doing 6 rounds of Surya Namaskar every morning. And whatever I did, some days I remembered it, some days I didn't, but I could not get consistent with it, as consistent as I wanted to. And then one day it struck me. I said, yeah, can I associate it with something that I regularly do? I said, okay, my association is I am not going to brush my teeth until I've done my 6 rounds of Surya Namaskar. Now, the point is, today also, if sometimes I miss my Surya Namaskar and I pick up my brush to brush my teeth, something tells me something is missing today. So, associations, conditioning your mind, I believe time and space have memory. You associate something with a certain time and a certain space, chances are it will happen.
Right.
So,
Well,
that is, yeah. Also, you can find friends, buddies, communities where the same change is happening. Public speaking, for example. Can you find a forum where people are practicing public speaking?
okay, as you
If you
said,
want,
buddies or the
yeah.
correct.
No, absolutely, please.
Yeah, you were saying something. So, as you said that having and the other friends and other relatives. Many times I have seen that if suppose I want to, start working on a particular change in my life, something which I am going to develop as a habit, I sometimes try to share with the others beforehand because I want to make myself accountable in the eyes of others.
Yes.
So it is not me. I can at times cheat myself because I have mentioned it to myself, or at least I can cheat myself. But others are going to ask me for sure. So many
Yes.
times, I do utilize this opportunity. Suppose I want to do something, I would like to tell it to you. My next question is regarding the overcoming fear and building confidence.
Yeah.
Because there is a mention like confidence, the importance of confidence in facing challenges and avoiding fear. So, what are the common sources of fears and how can one address those?
Yeah. And Tushar, before I come to the fear question, I just want to go back for a minute because of that lag. I couldn't
Please,
respond to the accountability question that you were talking about.
please.
Accountability is absolutely very, very powerful. And I would even
Correct.
urge people who have young children Actually, if you give the children the power to hold you accountable, you will be amazed how one empowering it is going to be for the kids, because you always
Correct.
keep asking them, did you study this, did you do this? If you tell them that, you're going to ask me, did I exercise today, and then see, kids will not leave you until you've actually done it. So that's,
True. Very true.
yeah, so that's one piece. Second, another way to build accountability is to write yourself a few reflection questions which you can answer for yourselves every night. Let's say just spend 2-3 minutes on those questions, and that reflection questions also is a way to build accountability, because at the end of the day you will say yes, no, or you'll score yourself out of 10, and sometimes you may have done badly, but it's a reminder for you that next day I have to do better.
Correct.
So you don't lose sight of things that you want to do. So that's what I wanted to mention on accountability. Then you were talking about fear. I think let's accept it. Fear is a very, very rational behavior. I believe that, the two of our biggest failures really is, first is the failure of immediately losing face,
True.
in front of a crowd, with our family, etc., etc. The second is fear of long-term failure, let's say. These really are the two biggest kinds of failure, I would say. And that is where we spoke about this, that it's important to be able to find a safe space to practice the change. Find a community, find a buddy, also reframe failure as an opportunity to learn, because there is no success possible without failure. There's been,
Very true.
actually, if you look at it, the success is not possible if you've not failed, because it's failing, learning, and then doing it things correctly, and then eventually succeeding at it. So reframing your thoughts around failure is also something which kind of helps. The other is, a lot of times this fear is a bit irrational, in the sense it's the fear of unknown. Once you start with action, you get so immersed with that action that the fear dissipates.
True.
Think about it. For example, let's say you join a dance class tomorrow. You have this fear, I have left foot, I can't, 2 left feet, I can't dance, for example. But the fact remains that once you are dancing, once you're in that rhythm, once you're with the crowd, once you are, that the fear just goes away.
Correct.
So that's the other way to kind of, a little bit reframe thoughts around fear.
Correct. Something to do with taking the bull by horns.
Absolutely, taking the bull by horns, right metaphor, completely.
Correct. 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 In fact, I'll just go back to the last discussion, because something which I've felt I should share with you.
Yeah.
I deal with the college students, and
Uh-huh.
I'm talking a decade ago. I'll tell you what happened. One early morning, I was about to take my class, so I was rushing towards the college,
Uh-huh.
and I did not know what am I doing, and I reached the college. In the process, early morning hours, I jumped signals also.
Okay.
So I didn't realize it, and I reached my office, and I was sitting, I was preparing myself. Another so student from fire engineering department came to me,
Huh.
stood in front of me, and did not speak anything. And then,
Okay.
then he stood there for a longer time. Then I said, "Why are you here? What do you want to
Huh.
tell me to?" He just looked at me. His eyes were almost moist, and he said, "You jumped signal today." And he felt so bad about that his trainer is jumping signals. Believe me, that day onwards, you'll always find me standing at the stoplight, because I don't know how many students are going to wait to watch me. So they make you
True.
accountable for sure. That's
Yeah,
something I want to tell you.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Uh, since you are dealing with coaching, since you are dealing with lots of people around, so I'm sure that you have created lots of success stories. So if you can share with us for our better understanding of things, like some real life examples or success stories your coaching experience has brought, you can tell us maybe a broader thing, may not be very
Sure,
specific.
sure, sure, sure.
Right. So
So,
you can definitely share.
yeah, most of my work, as I was saying, was with senior leaders in corporate setups, organizational setups, etc., etc. A lot of this change has been about, for example, professional growth. People
Correct.
who've started a coaching journey, realized the need for change, signed up for an executive education program, and moved on to the next level. Willing to make that
Correct.
commitment and work for it. So that's one big piece which has happened. I think there have been quite a few cases where people have worked on, for example, public speaking skills. I think it's a skill that everybody needs in one form or the other,
True. True. True.
and how to go about building it, etc., etc. And then there is about executive presence, as we call in corporate, or leadership presence, how to become a better leader. There have been also people who worked, because these corporate engagements are also about the individual. So there are individuals who've identified, for example, goals of being a healthier person, in terms of exercising, eating right, despite all the pressures of a corporate life. And
Correct.
and I must say that I cannot take so much the credit of this change happening. The only thing that I have done is that I have made them realize that there is the need for change and there is a need for action immediately. And then
Correct.
hopefully, I have helped them, motivated them to walk that path of change. And that is
Right.
why these coaching journeys are over 6 to 8 months. You do
True.
small short sessions, but engage every month or twice a month, etc. Because any kind of change is about, especially at this age, is about adult behavior change. And adult
Correct.
behavior cannot change overnight. It takes time.
Right. In fact, there was a question I had. Like, I just wrote it down on a piece
Yeah.
of paper with me,
Uh,
and I just thought of asking you this, like, intensity or the
yeah.
degree of willingness to change. Does it have anything to do with the age? That was the question I was supposed to ask you.
I think it's a very individual trait, I would say. People who
Okay.
have a learner growth mindset tend to have
Correct.
that throughout their lives.
Right.
Uh, at the same time, we must not believe that it's a nature thing only. You can nurture a growth mindset. You can
Right.
become more growth oriented. You should not accept the fact that this is the way I am. There
Correct.
are people who, and we always sometimes talk about, you spoke about adults, we talk about midlife crisis. Now,
Correct.
midlife crisis for people work two ways. For some people, they get so bothered by the midlife crisis that they just feel that our life is done. Whatever has to happen will happen. Whatever we could do, we have done. And then there is a completely different set of people who take that midlife crisis as an opportunity to reassess their life and say, okay, half my life is done, but I have half my life left. And these are the things that I'm going to do. Today, I have the privilege of maybe money. Today, I have the privilege of possibly time. Today, I have the privilege that my responsibilities are not maybe as much.
Correct.
So, it's all about, an individual's consciousness and the willingness to kind of make that effort.
Correct. In fact, one thing which I think would be a very important question from my point of view, we always relate change with success
Yes.
because every time there is a change, the very natural response is to discard or not to. We don't welcome any change as such in our lives. That's what change has some direct relation with success. And on this particular backdrop, what would you like to suggest to the audience across? What kind of habits, where we could call them as sticky habits, where I adopt to them and they remain with me lifelong? Would you like to say something on this? How to build those things?
Um, we touched on this a little bit. One is that to identify that what are the habits that you need to build for yourself. It could be about breaking bad habits, but it could also be building good habits. And typically people talk about, for example, exercising or eating healthy or, professional growth, etc. Because to me, even professional growth, for example, I would call it a habit, because anything that is done in a manageable bite form every day is a habit to my mind. If, for example, for your professional growth, you study half an hour every day, that to me is an habit if you do it consistently. So,
Right.
to be able to, one, cut them out in small pieces as you form the habit and not really go high degree in terms of intensity. Second is, as I was saying, try and do things daily. It's more sticky.
Right.
Build anchors, build association, find buddies, communities where you enjoy that process of change. And maybe some people are like, I am very, let's say, discipline minded. I like to track things. So,
Yeah.
keep yourself a track sheet or something so that you know that you are working in the right direction. Uh, you know, I like to, for example, take a 21-day challenge a lot of times. Okay, this is a change I want to work on. Let me start doing this 21 days consistently. Now, whether that change sticks or not, I will know only at the end of 21 days. However,
True.
if I don't start, I know that it is never going to happen.
True.
So, a
Very
lot
true.
of times it's about just starting and experiencing, and then hopefully you get motivation along the way to stay the course.
Right. Now, that's an interesting one. Now, when it comes to the changes, there are lots of things because man's life is having multiple facets. So there are lots of things happening around us. There are multiple changes. Maybe initiatives are taken, or maybe we are put into that situation wherein
Mhm.
we have to adopt the change.
Mhm.
So there's going to be a burnout.
Mhm.
People will get overwhelmed with the this pursuing multiple changes. So how can we avoid that situation where the burnout or getting overwhelmed as we are pursuing all those multiple changes?
So, the one I think that we need to avoid doing too much too soon. So,
Very true.
multiple things, when we work on multiple changes, chances are nothing is going to happen, or very limited things are going to happen. So, let's avoid working on multiple changes. Let's pick up one change which can give us the long-term benefits that we want. Let's take that change to a certain level before we move to another change. I think that's one
Correct.
part. The second part is that multitasking has become a way of life. We need to understand
True.
how can we be a bit more mindful, picking single task at single point in time and completing it, or bringing it to a certain logical conclusion before we move to the next task. We are checking the phone, we are checking the email, and then I'm having a conversation with you and then doing something else as well. Nothing is going to happen. I'm going to feel overwhelmed at the end of the day, and I will have nothing to show. And in the book, I discuss actually a technique which is called Pomodoro. And that's how this 25 minutes of book writing also came. And Pomodoro is a very simple technique. It says 25 minutes, don't do anything, just focus on one task. Switch off your phone, switch off your email, just do the task that you are set out to do for 25 minutes. That's it. And 25 minutes is a lot of time if you put it on a single task. You are able to achieve so much. So, how can you be more mindful about the things that you are working on is an important element to avoid getting overwhelmed. And thirdly, is to have some hobbies, something which resets you, rejuvenates you. Where do you get your source your energy from? I think the hobbies, whether it's some people may like to exercise, some people may like music, those hobbies which will give you the energy, reset you for the next day, is an equally important part of kind of making change, let's say.
Correct. As your book is published, it is reaching out to the readers Just one question which just came to my mind that what do you think that once the book reaches to the hands of the reader and reader reads it, what exactly do you think in terms of message
Yes.
it should reach to the readers through this book?
So, the most critical message that I would hope that the reader would get from the book is that not to take things as they are. Just pause, reflect, understand what is the change they want in their lives, what is it they desire, and start working towards it. For me, I think, and some people already who have read the book share with me that at least the book helped us kind of, it compelled us to think about where are we going,
Right.
what is it that we want, are we working towards it. For me, that is a great, if somebody tells me reading the book that even that single thing happened, I think it would be a great achievement. I truly believe, and I have put some of these frameworks to work, that all these frameworks, are valuable. If people commit to it, they can certainly win any change that they want for themselves. So I hope that some audiences, readers will also, put into action some of these frameworks and hopefully, learn and also, maybe connect with me, give me feedback about what worked and what didn't work for them. So that's really what the aim is.
Great, great, great. I've gone through lots of wonderful reviews, and most of them are coming from the corporates and quite learned and very experienced set of people, highly placed people. They've given wonderful reviews. One question, this is going to be the penultimate one. Uh, can you share a memorable moment of feedback where a reader he gave it to you and that stuck with you forever? Like,
I think for me, and this is both a compliment to the book and also an endorsement for the book is what. So Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who's given the front page endorsement for the book, and he says, read this book, follow its advice, and watch your career, relationships, and life change. So
great.
for me, that's a very, very powerful endorsement. And coming from Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who's considered world's number one leadership coach, thinker, I believe that is certainly an endorsement which will stay with me for a long, long, long time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's very fantastic.
Yeah.
And probably in the field of coaching, and if it is coming from a person of his stature, I'm sure that it must be something which is already there in the heart of the heart of you as such. My last question:
Yes.
what next?
Interesting. What next?
So,
Yeah,
are you
so
working on it?
yeah,
Are you working on
I
it?
have some book ideas. I must say that I've not started on it, but I have some thoughts. Most likely, the book is going to be because this one is about personal change. That book is going to be a little bit about organizational change. It's going to be about organizations and how to help organizations with their change journeys. So that's most likely what the topic of the next book is going to be, as far as writing is concerned. But then I have my own kind of space and ambitions, so to do different things. And for me, life is all about exploration. So uh, maybe so went for an Everest base camp trek just last month. That was a great opportunity to do something different. So every opportunity to challenge myself in some ways and do something different, whether it's writing or whether it's experiencing something which I haven't experienced before.
Okay,
So,
that's fantastic.
yeah.
So that is what classically what is called as walk the talk. Whatever you are provoking, whatever you are provoking, conveying it to us, making us read, and you are leading that life, creating an example from the front. That's fantastic. Nice interacting with you, Sandeep. That was really very enlightening experience, as said, because as an interviewer also when I'm sitting and listening. lots of things I'm carrying with me, and maybe you will find that I'll start working. Maybe I'll keep you posted about what changes I'm trying to bring in. As you suggested, I'll not do too many changes in one go, but I'd like to go with one at a time. So lots of new things you brought into to have this book in their possession. They're going to read it, and they're going to make the positive changes what you wish for them, that will come true. And we are work on the organizational change. That's something very interesting area again. So we look forward for many more opportunities to interact with you. Thank you so much. Nice talking to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Tushar. It's been a pleasure. You brought in some very insightful questions, I must say. Also, helped me take a pause and rethink about things that I had written, remember them, and bring it back to you. So, thank you so much for this opportunity. I do hope that audiences, when they get to see it, hear it, will find some learnings in it, and some of whom may want to pick up the book and read more about some of the topics that we've discussed. So once again, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.